So today we're going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. We are now on episode 86 of the series, and in the previous episode we saw the federalization of a ton of alliances through the Assembly of Nations. So as you can see now, this is the new updated map of all of the economic alliances in the world. A new military alliance was also created down here in South America. Libya erupted into civil war, and Russia invaded a country down here near the Sea of Azov. But if you guys do enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And before we jump into the scenario, I do want to talk a few things WICSO. So number one, after this video, there will be 14 episodes of WICSO left. That is, 14 weeks from now, but that's going to go by a lot faster than we all think it is. And at this point of time, I'm happy to say that I have finally started the production of the finale of WICSO. Now, not entirely. I haven't started recording it or anything because obviously I can't. We still have 13 episodes to go. But as far as the storyline, that's all planned out. We're good there. There's a few other things that I'm working on, including some musical production. I have a few concepts out for that now. Am I actually going to produce my own music for the WICSO finale? I really hope so. I'm planning on it. I got a few people that can help me out with that, but I don't know if it's going to come into fruition, but I'm going to try my best to make it do so. This finale is very important to me, and I want to make sure that it's the best that it can be, so I'm doing all of the planning ahead of it. Additionally, from episode 90 and on, things are going to pick up a lot, lore-wise. So these last 4 episodes will be your classical WICSO, but from episode 90 and up, it's going to be a little bit different. Now, I'm not saying that we're not going to fool around with the map. Of course, that's what we're going to do. That's what WICSO is all about. But there's going to be a lot more lore and a lot more cinematic stuff, at least in my head. But for now, we're focused on today's episode, so let's go ahead and jump straight into that. So starting off over here in Indonesia, this is what we were talking about at the very end of last episode. They have a lot of interest in doing the whole Unitarian concept. Remember that the red country and the green country had united, but they hadn't chosen an official name or a new flag or anything like that, and that's because they are considering adapting the form of Unitarianism. Think about it. It makes sense. This country has a lot of different communities united under it. It's never been a problem. They're not a super religious country, but if it did matter, then they are, one religion as a country. But a decision will finally be made by the Indonesians. And that decision is to join the cause. The red team will join the Unitarians. So the people of this country will be abandoning their identity. They'll be setting aside all of their differences and come together to form the ultimate society. Now, the concept of Unitarianism hasn't been tried anywhere but Canada and obviously Greenland. So there are a lot of countries around the world that may be interested in the concept that are watching this and wanting to see what happens in Indonesia and seeing if the same kind of prosperity is achieved by these guys as we see in Canada. Now, is this its own separate country? Well, yes, of course. But the ideology of the Unitarians, of course, we saw the whole religious layer, that's the same as the Unitarians. But the concept, the governmental structure, and the societal structure are all set up pretty much the exact same way. And the official name of this country will be Indonesian Unitaria. That also raises another question, which is, what is the name of this country? And that one's also pretty simple. It's Canadian Unitaria. Now, the interaction between the two Unitarian governments will actually be very good right off the bat. Of course, the Unitarians are a country that like to save their diplomacy for other countries they find very favorable. Indonesia has always been a very favorable country for them. So when the transition finally happens, of course, the Canadian Unitarians will come in and they will help Indonesia with this transition. But interestingly enough, a few days after the transition is fulfilled, the two governments will meet over here in Canadian Unitaria, and they're going to be signing an alliance together. Now, what kind of alliance, you might be asking? Well, it's going to be a military alliance. Now, this definitely has a few countries concerned because the Unitarians don't really ever present themselves as a hostile nation. In fact, they're one of the biggest advocates for peace around the world, so why are they signing a military alliance? It's definitely odd. The governments, however, will claim that they're doing this to bring the two countries closer together. It's nice for the Canadian Unitarians to finally have a true ally, and I guess just to kind of, once again, bring them together. This was their plan. But there's a little bit more. Another star alliance is made, but this time it's economic. And once again, Indonesia joins it. So we now see these two exclusive alliances made between the two Unitarian countries, which is once again aimed at bringing both of them together. Now though, we're going to stop talking about friendliness and we're going to come down here to West Africa, where recent government change has had the foreign policy of the country also changed. Remember that West Africa is now a democratic country that got changed after World War V. And not only is West Africa a democratic country, but a lot of the nations in Africa have now switched, ignoring Libya because they just had a little bit of a change in the last episode. But for example, this country used to be fascist, and then this one over here, they used to be dictators. But the main point of this is that the new leader of West Africa wants to pursue other countries that have dictatorships. In a message to the rest of the African community, he says that the continent needs to be ridded of authoritarianism, and he has 2 cases to present. These 2 countries down here are in horrible condition. They have two dictators, of course, but they are the two poorest countries on this continent, and a lot of people know that it's because of their ideology and their authoritarian leaders. It's also pretty important to know that neither of these countries are in the Assembly of Nations. So what does West Africa do? Well, they state to the continent and to the world that they are going on a mission, and that mission involves toppling both of these governments. Now, the world reaction to this would probably be pretty mixed. Now, remember though, the world is heading in a very good direction where people are pretty equal and that like economic disparity has been eliminated. That is the case for all of the countries that are democratic, meaning that these two don't really fit the narrative. Sure, some of the anti-war countries probably wouldn't like this, but most of them would understand that West Africa is probably trying to bring these two into the modern sense. So West African troops will begin to move into the green country. Now, there is no formal declaration of war that is sent. Simply, it is just a special operations mission, which is what the West African military says it is. The forces of the green team will of course try to fight back, but they are extremely overwhelmed by the much more powerful West African armies. And to make things a little bit worse, West Africa has been in talks with some other countries, and more specifically, the brown country down here. West Africa has asked them to join the war, and remember, this country recently just got a new government as well. They just got democratized. They're also an ally of South Africa, and they're definitely in support of the cause because it has completely changed this country. They went from like one of the worst countries in Africa to a mid-tier country in Africa. So they understand, and they also want to help the cause. Brown team forces will also cross the border and start to invade into the green country, and their main goal is to go over here to the capital city and get that dictator. West African forces will also start to present a spearhead as they too want to reach the capital city. But first, they make a few pit stops, one over here in this major city, and a spearhead presents itself over here, reaching this major city. The brown team will also move up and capture a major city, and together these two countries will go ahead and encircle this city. Now, before they did that though, the dictator that was here went ahead and fled, which is what most dictators do when they're presented with death. Well, maybe not death, but definitely trial. And where did he flee? Well, ironically enough, he fled over here to the pink team, and their dictator allowed him to come in to seek refuge. Also, sorry my voice is kind of choppy. I had a presentation today, and apparently that did numbers on my voice. I don't know why that did. Probably because I was nervous, but my voice is kind of like cutting out a little bit. So apologies if I like sound weird at any point in the video. Anyway, West African forces will go ahead and capture the capital city of the green team. And with the dictator fleeing the country, there's kind of an open spot or a vacancy at the leadership position. I'm sure that a military general would probably come in and take that, but the country decides to go ahead and surrender, or at least the military does. So the brown team and West Africa are successful in taking out this country, and they are successful in eliminating the authoritarian government. Now though, there's one more elephant in the room, and it's extremely pink. West African forces will then turn their guns over here to the east and begin to invade into the pink country. And following in their tracks is the brown team as they move up and capture this major city and cut off this area down here. The pink team is a lot weaker than the green team was, so West African forces are easily able to storm into the capital city of this pink team. However, they don't find the dictators here. Occupational forces will eventually spread out across the entire country, but the dictators are nowhere to be found. West Africa will contact the government of all of the surrounding countries here, trying to see where the dictators went. There's no way they could have gotten out by, like jet or helicopter because West Africa would have shot it down. So where did the dictators go? Did they go to the orange team? Nope, their new democratic government is not in support of these two former countries. Obviously, they didn't go to the brown team. Did the blue team take them in? No, wait, why do you guys have two capitals? Oh, it's on the major city layer. Interesting. Let's go ahead and wipe it off the map. Anyway, though, these guys definitely didn't take them in. Remember, they also got a democratic government not too long ago, and they've been trying to improve themselves. They don't want any trouble with the powerful countries around them. So the dictators went to Libya, didn't they? Yes, they did. They've been spotted in Libya. Ironically enough, the dictator of this country was like, yeah, come on in. You can join our government and you can help us beat back these rebels. That makes West Africa not so happy. Are they going to join the war against Libya? No, that is a mess. We don't want to get involved with that. We're just going to watch that play out for a little bit. Maybe we can get a more favorable government if like the yellow team wins, for example. So warrants for the arrest of these two dictators is issued by West Africa and a bunch of the countries surrounding them that were in support of West Africa's cause. But for now, let's go ahead and take a look at the peace treaty between the green and the pink team in West Africa and the brown team. And well, this peace treaty is pretty interesting. So the brown team and West Africa both took land from the green team, which was not the focus of the war. So a few countries are kind of scratching their head over this. Why did you just take land from the country you said you were going to free? Well, the justification they give is pretty BS if you ask me, but basically they're like, these areas of the country are kind of like out of control. There's a lot of activity there that is very unrestful. So we need to we need to annex this area to make sure that it doesn't go bad in the future. We want to give this new government a little bit of relief. So we're going to take the land for them. We're going to hold on to it for them permanently. Okay, you just want land. Fine, whatever. It's your war. So the two areas of the green team will be annexed by their respective holders. Not that much, that's a lot, but that much, yes. And these are our new borders of this area in Africa. Now, of course, these two countries are also going to get new governments. Well, hold on a second. what if they didn't? What if, instead of having these two extremely poor countries being on their own with new governments and being very unstable, what if instead we just had them unite together into one new republic? Well, West Africa and the Brown team were definitely interested in that. They feel like these two countries would be better off together rather than divided in order to boost their economy, and already the people here are the same group of people, just different governments. So it's not like there would be an issue with these two countries coming together. If anything, they've only been held apart by the fact that they had their own authoritarian leaders. So West Africa and the Brown team, they're not going to force these two countries into unification. Instead, they're going to hold a poll in both countries, and the people will be allowed to choose whether or not they can unite together or if they want to stay separate. The AN will come in and they will facilitate this to make sure that it is indeed democratic and there's no interference. And the results are as shown. 67% of the people in the green team are in favor of unification, and 76% of the people in the pink team are in favor of unification. They understand that together these two countries would be a lot more prosperous. So that's what we have happening. The new democratic government will go ahead and move the capital city, not in either of these cities, but to a new city that is located right next to the old capital city. So, I mean, it's really not much of a move, but at least they did move. Kind of neutral grounds, but not really. So here is the new capital city, and here is your new ideology. Democratic. So now there is only one authoritarian country in Africa, and it's one that has been blown up into 4 different pieces, so maybe that will end soon. And in total, there really isn't many other authoritarian countries. Now, do notice that this map is not up to date, so my apologies for that. But you can see that Russia, for example, is authoritarian, and then this blue country down here, they're authoritarian. Other than that, there's Australia, and then there are these two guys down here in South America. Now, all of the communist countries, they are not authoritarian. They are making it work somehow. Anyway, we're now going to come over here to Mesopotamia, where we see their economic alliance slightly expand. So we have 2 new countries joining. First of all, we have the green one over here that used to be in India's economic alliance. That's a big slap in the face to them. But the second country is this light blue Anatolian country. So they joined the Mesopotamian Accord, or no, it's actually called the Mesopotamian Economic Order. And the most powerful economic alliance in the world once again expands. Now though, we do have to talk about something that is extremely important, and about an event that took place a little bit ago, not too long ago, but maybe an episode or so ago in the series. Anyway though, we need to talk about a very important event for this world. The planet of Mars is very close to being explored by a person. Now this world has already had rovers on Mars. They haven't found anything there, but they're now preparing to send a man there. He's currently on his way there, and what country is he from? Well, he's from none other country than the red team over here in Mesopotamia. It was an international effort to get a man onto Mars, and it included works from not only the red team, but the blue team, from India, from Ireland, and also from the Unitarians. The mission is probably one of the most anticipated events in the history of this world. It was set back a little bit by World War V, but the plans were never discarded, and now they have finally been put into action, and the man will land on Mars successfully. And that's all we know. The public is really never told any information about what happened on Mars, but the man will eventually, probably a while from now, will return to the Earth. He, of course, will do his media interviews and so on and so forth. Like, yeah, I was the first man to step foot on another planet. Pretty cool. But as far as like what has been collected, like the information they have collected from Mars, it's not really well known at all. Most people just assume that they visited another planet, they saw a bunch of rocks, a bunch of dust, and they left. Anyway though, we're now going to pop down to the Libyan civil war real quick. Recently, there have been a lot of gains by the brownish red team over here in the top right corner of Libya. Now, there are a ton of Libyan forces that are stationed right here in the middle, so that's not really a priority as of now, especially considering the fact that those forces have just eliminated the central group. We've also seen them have a lot of pressure on the southern group down here, but these guys have also made a little bit of progress, now reaching up to the border of the blue team and Egypt. Now, Egypt is very cautious about this war because they don't want it to spill over into their country. They just fought in World War V. They don't need any more fighting here. Sorry, I kicked my fan. But as for the other side of the country, between the yellow and the green team, things are getting very interesting here. They have finally just made contact with each other. And as theorized in the last episode, the contact probably isn't going to be too friendly. Nonetheless, these two groups will fill in the remaining Libyan era, and then after that happens is when they start fighting each other. Specifically, the green team seems to have a little bit of a hatred towards the yellow team, and it really isn't apparent as to why, because they're fighting for pretty similar causes in the matter of like religious, their government's a little bit different than ours. And we want to make sure that we are properly being represented by, this not foreign, but different government. And the only difference is these guys are like basically terrorists and these guys are, fairly democratic. Those two things don't go along so well. But the green team is pretty much wrecking the yellow team at this point. It's not looking too good for them. A pretty large number of troops will be cut off over here and will all be eliminated as West Africa had closed those borders. You're not getting in, buddy. Additionally, to make things things worse for the yellow team, they have this group up here being wiped out by the main Libyan forces, and they've also started to make advances into yellow team territory. Now, of course, they're not going to discriminate, they're also making advances into the green team's territory, but things are about to get very interesting, especially after the terrorists reach up to the border of the Mediterranean country. At this point, it does look like the yellow team is going to be eliminated, but then something changes. The Mediterranean country indirectly gets involved in the war, and they do so by doing a few little bombing runs on some major targets down here in the green team. A few missile barrages take place, a few military infrastructural projects are taken out, a few major settlements where some terrorists might have been hiding have been taken out, and the Mediterranean country pledges its support to the yellow group in Libya. The main Libyan government isn't a big fan of this, but they definitely are not interested in getting involved in a war with the Mediterranean country, so they're just going to have to kind of let it happen. They are kind of helping them out, of course, by taking out some of the terrorists, but at the same time, they're destroying actual Libyan claimed land, so it brings up a pretty difficult thing. It's also worth to mention that at this point in time, Libya has been suspended from the Assembly of Nations, so to kind of symbolize that, we're going to color in their star gray. But that was a decision that was brought forth by Egypt, in a decision that the rest of the body voted in favor of. So with the Mediterranean country now indirectly getting involved with this fight, we do see the yellow team have a little bit of a resurgence. They go ahead and they start to take back some of the land from this terrorist country, and it's pretty good, although at the same time they are still losing over here in the eastern region, so they're going to have to lock in there. Oh, and the green team has just retaliated. They're now moving their own forces into the Mediterranean country, and it turns out they have a few proxies up here. Well, that was completely unexpected. The Mediterranean country is a pretty neutral, pretty peaceful country, but out here in the desert, things, I guess, aren't so pretty. The new proxies that popped up in the Mediterranean country, of course, are pledging the same allegiance that these guys are as well. And at this point, the terrorist movement here is moving away from being an anti-Libyan movement, or more so an anti-red religion movement, into being a more pro-pink team movement that is focused on the extremism of this religion. These guys are religious extremists, and they're doing a lot of damage to these democratic countries. With the new issue popping up in the south, the yellow team will once again be pushed back by green team forces, and the front line just gets messier and messier, but it's a little bit less messy over here. These guys are continuing to advance against the Libyans, as at this point, they are presenting themselves as a pretty formidable foe. They're getting extremely close to Libya's capital city, and they are on the verge of capturing this major city as well. Now, the Libyans, seeing this and seeing the new issue developing over here, are going to make a pretty interesting decision. Instead of pursuing these guys, let's go ahead over here and make sure that we don't lose our most important area, and they will take some troops from this front line, push them over here, and that will allow them to give some breathing room for these two cities. Unfortunately, though, another large section of the country has just declared itself as a proxy of the anti-Libyan movement. I don't know what color this is. Usually I like to call countries by their colors. I'm just not too sure what is this. It's red, but it's also like not red. A very dark pink. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments. I'm good at coloring colors, not naming colors. But with this new proxy group presenting itself in the south here, Libya's got their hands even more full. Anyway, though, we're going to take a step back from that and we're going to add some more countries into the Assembly of Nations. Number 1, of course, is going to be the country that just united over here right south of Libya. Number 2 will be this small dark sign country over here in Central Asia. Number 3 is Korea. Number 4 is the brown Japanese country. Number 5 is finally the pink team. 6 is the light blue country over here in Anatolia. 7 is the blue country in the Philippines. 8 is the one just south of that. And 9, ew. Red Australia joins the AN. That's interesting, but I guess they join. There really isn't an explanation that is given by the Red Australians, but it is theorized that they are pretty much adapting the same strategy as Russia. You join the international order and you get more say and influence, and you know that's why Russia joins. So Red Australia is probably doing the exact same thing. These guys don't need to be called Red Australia anymore. They're the only Australia. So yeah, Australia, good for you. Also, the mighty warriors known as Grey Papa Islands, they also join the Assembly of Nations. The only reason these guys exist is because they were a fan request to have their own independence. It was actually a pretty good reason. They didn't have a color before. But just know that if you're like really into the lore and like the way of things, that these guys would most certainly be a part of Australia. It's just that, for the community, I'll leave them alone for now. Anyway, moving up here to Russia real quick. Don't worry, they're not invading anybody. But what they are doing is signing a military alliance with the light blue country over here near the Caspian Sea. Now, what do these guys have in common? Well, you guessed it, they do both have authoritarian leaders, and they want to make sure they stay together because in recent times, some authoritarian leaders have been on their way out. But the teal country isn't the only one that joins this alliance, because the Libyan government will also join the alliance. Now, this makes things very complicated because they're in a matter of war war right now. Does that mean that Russia and the Teal team are going to get involved? Well, no, not really. But they will be sending some volunteer forces down, some resources, and pretty much anything that Libya needs to overcome their little issue. This is an action that is not well liked by a lot of countries, including West Africa, who wants to make sure that these groups or networks down here, specifically the green one, doesn't come into power, but it looks like that might be the case. Well, not come into power, but maybe gain some sovereignty. So West Africa will protest this to the Assembly of Nations, so that they can't do anything about that because, well, Russia is its own country. They have the right to do whatever they want to do. This made West Africa very angry. Oh well, you can't do anything though. Anyway, we're not done with Russia just yet because a few things have just occurred and, well, they're not too great. On the border between Russia and the Gold Team, there has been some extreme tension, and more specifically, there's been a lot of tension right in this region here. First of all, the Gold Team, after some recent events that Russia has carried out, such as the annexation of this country here, has decided to put their military on the highest of alerts. And what that means is they have some troops on their borders, notably a lot of groupings down here, but also a lot of groupings up here near Russia's capital city. Now, Russia doesn't like that at all because those are troops, those are battle-ready troops, within a couple miles, well, not a couple, but, a few dozen miles away from their capital city. Russia thinks that maybe the Gold Team shouldn't do that, so they're going to take it up with the AN. Yes, Russia is going to complain to the AN about the activity of the Gold Team, but unfortunately for Russia, they can't do anything about that because they are operating within their own sovereign territory. You can't dictate what another country does with its own military in its own territory. This makes Russia very unhappy. But that's not really what's causing a lot of tensions to escalate. What is causing those tensions to escalate is the fact that Poland is doing much of the same. Their troops are all gathered up in this specific region here. Kind of weird. Why do they have so many troops on Russia's border? Well, both the Gold Team and the Blue Team say that it's for their own protection. Recently, Russia has taken out a lot of countries, such as the ones over here, and then they also took out this one recently as well, so they feel kind of threatened. Yes, both of these countries have their respective alliances, and yes, so does Russia and the Light Blue Team, but tensions could not be any higher between the Russians and the Gold Team. Russia will now make the decision to go ahead and put their troops on the entire border of both of these countries, so now these borders are both lined up with the troops on both sides pointing guns at each other, and the AN is causing for an immediate de-escalation of this situation. Now, remember, all of these countries are in the AN, which means that there is some jurisdiction that the assembly has over these guys in a very small sense, of course. You can't stop them from doing what they're doing, but you can definitely heavily persuade them through the General Assembly, but neither side is backing down. And then it happens. Right on the outskirts of Russia's capital city, Russian and Ukrainian troops get into an exchange of fire. It is speculated whether or not an official order was given by anybody, but Russian troops begin to advance into Ukrainian territory, and of course, this warrants a declaration of war. And this will also not only do that, but it activates the military alliance between the Ukrainians and the Polish, and Russia is now at war with the Pentagon Alliance. They will call their ally into the war, of course, the Teal Team. They will not call Libya into the war because, well, we all know what's happening in Libya. But it seems as if history might be repeating itself. The Russians and the Ukrainians are at war. Anyway, though, that is going to do it for today's episode on What If Civilization Started Over. If you guys did enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like on it as I try to center this map on the screen so you can look at it in all its glory. But yeah, if you guys have been enjoying WICSO so far, let me know down in the comments below. Let me know what you guys want to see happen next in this series. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we're getting pretty close to the more cinematical and lore-filled part of the series, which is going to be the last 10 episodes. So I do hope you guys are excited for that. I'm working on producing some things for the finale, which comes out in January. So I'm going to be able to work on that over all of winter break, which is super nice and super convenient to make sure that it's good enough for all of us. I want to make sure that the series goes out with a bang, and I'm sure you guys want to make sure that the series ends on a very satisfactory note. Now, it is possible that not everyone is going to be satisfied with the ending of this series. I understand that, but I have something in mind to where a lot of people will be satisfied. Pretty grand idea if you ask me. I've been thinking about the end of the series for months now. I've had this notes app on my phone that is just filled with ideas for the ending. And I think I finally have an idea in mind of what's going to happen. Well, I definitely have an idea in mind. So that's definitely the good part out of the way. I know what I'm doing for the finale. To make it even better for all of you, I'm also working on producing some music for the finale. I have a friend that's pretty good with music. We're going to work together to produce a song and maybe some lyrical stuff as well. Who knows? Also, going to start having some other people do some voice acting. Of course, you guys know that that I voice act everyone that is in the series. So the whole pre-episode lore stuff that you guys always see, That's me, voice changer. Well, that is me. I think having some other voices that are different tones that come in and help out, that would be a lot of help to kind of make it seem less like me, because you could recognize my voice, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, look forward to episode 90. It's going to be a very important episode and probably the most impactful episode of the series so far. That's in a few weeks though, but for now we're going to enjoy the Russia war, we're going to enjoy the Libyan civil war, and we're going to enjoy all the other marvelous events that we come up with in the next few episodes of the series. So once again, if you guys did enjoy, make sure to show some support on this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. And of course, thank you to all our super fans. This includes Andrew O2, Turno Apex, Omega the YouTuber, Terminator, Aiden Shank, Icy Static
See What I Do,
CTG on YT,
AdizzPro,
Euroball,
Bren,
Jazzy Gerboa,
Green France Mapping,
Nevada Garbage Trucks,
Vista,
Nightenhood 7353,
GNR 95,
Ozgeo,
Big
A
Goose,
Norwegian,
RS,
and Golden Ball Mapping,
Zaylance,
Laser Taze,
Augusto,
Pablo Sigma Cat,
and
Hammer Toad 45. Once again, thank you guys.